I was offered to photograph the cover of Kanye West, and I said no because it was going to be the last Thanksgiving in my house.
It just happened to be that way, where a couple days later, shortly after that, all of that information came out about him.
Oh, yeah. It was honestly one of those things where I was like, I'm so glad because A, I stuck to my morals of like, I wasn't just going to bail out on my mom. So that's thing number one, right? And then two was look at how he turned out to be. And that's kind of actually what started turning me off from the fashion world. But now I'm more focused on taking photos of kind, wonderful female entrepreneurs mostly, instead of chasing this like fashion dreams for people that maybe aren't the best humans.
This podcast episode is brought to you by my Business Basics class. I teach you the 8 essential steps to get your business legal and legit so you can watch it bloom. You'll learn the basics of what is an LLC and the first steps to opening one up, opening a business bank account, how to find an accountant, what is bookkeeping and how can you do it yourself to save some money, what contracts and legal documents to consider and where you can buy them, the starting point for saving for your retirement, how to find a financial advisor, and where to start looking for business insurance. When you avoid getting all these ducks in a row, you are risking getting sued, paying more in taxes, and missing out on turning your income into more money. Head to jessicawhitaker.co/businessbasics to enroll. Katie, I am so excited to have you on the Build and Bloom Photography podcast. We connected earlier in the summertime, and I love that we share a common ground of our Christian faith, and that's going to be a theme throughout this episode. But for those who don't share that same faith, you are going to be able to still connect with this and apply it to whatever you practice or maybe don't practice at all. You're just going to get so encouraged from this episode. And Katie, you have so much experience in the commercial and like fashion photography world. You interned with Annie Leibovitz when you were in your early 20s. You photographed Kourtney Kardashian. And my favorite on your Instagram right now is a feature that you photographed Tan France from Queer Eye, which is me and my mom's favorite show to watch together. For Paper Magazine, you photographed for Harper's Bazaar. I mean, we could go on, but why don't you introduce yourself to my audience?
Amazing. Hi, I'm so glad to be here, and I love your work so much, so I'm so happy to be here. So I started as this is basically, I always say that like photography, I really didn't have a choice. It's like something that really I've always been drawn to since I was a little kid. My dad was a hobby photographer, and he'd always say like, oh, the 3-year-old took a great picture when he'd get the film back. So it's kind of something that's all I've always wanted to do. And from there, in high school, I kind of started going to like abandoned houses with friends and trying to do these fashion shoots. Yeah, exactly. A lot of like what your listeners can probably relate to is just kind of feeling the waters of being creative with photography. From there, I actually went to art history school, followed a boyfriend, really stupid thing, but we all make choices, right? But I was studying art history because it also seemed kind of like the safer route. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, right? And so from there, I actually decided after the breakup with the guy, I was like, you know what, I think I actually want to be a photographer. So that's where I really dived in. I did my last 2 years of school at Columbia in Chicago. And then halfway through that, graduating college, it's a miracle it even happened, to be honest with you. But halfway through photography school, I get an internship with Vogue, and it was like a girl I partied with, and she was like, I think you'd be perfect at Vogue, have an interview. So I moved to LA for a semester and ended up starting really as like the worst intern and ended up becoming the best intern. And after I, finished my internship, they're like, if you graduate school, we'll recommend you to Annie Leibovitz. And I was like, well, of course. So ended up getting the interview or the job on the spot for Annie's right after I graduated, a week after, moved to New York City, and that really propelled my career. I always say that Annie's was like my master's in lighting. I learned so much about, it takes an army to create all the beautiful things we flip through a magazine for. So yeah, it was really inspiring. And then from there, it really took off.
Should we explain to somebody who might be listening who don't know who Annie Leibovitz is? Could you kind of maybe give like a little tiny insight into what that looks like?
Yeah, I would say she's one of like the first major like iconic fashion photographers besides Richard Avedon or Irving Penn or anything like that. But she's the OG of like the classic Vogue editorial. Her lighting is really what sets her apart. It's this very like dramatic, beautiful soft light that's iconic to a lot of the Vogue spreads that you know and love. And on top of that, she started with Rolling Stone, actually like the Rolling Stones was their, tour guide or tour photographer for one of their first tours. And then she ended up being one of the first photographers actually for Rolling Stone magazine. So, and all those iconic shots like Michael Jackson on his toes, Meryl Streep pulling her face, I think it's Oprah in the bathtub. Like there's just these classic images that, she's just created over the years. She was also known for shooting the last photograph of John Lennon before he died. So that Rolling Stone cover. And then like 2 hours later, he walked out and got shot. So,
wow.
yeah.
And so being able to be her intern is such a huge, huge deal. But it really does show how much God has so much favor on you. And even the fact that it is your destiny to do photography in this way, that when you were 3 years old and your dad is like, oh my gosh, she took such a great photo on the camera. I mean, that's just like speaking life over you in this specific in photography from such a young age. And I totally relate to going and doing just the most like dangerous, stupid things. Like, let's go to an abandoned house in the Northwest. And it's like 16-year-old girls all going up there, not safe, but I understand exactly. Oh my gosh. And so, okay, I would love to start kind of simple and just ask you, what do you as Katie bring along to your photo shoots? I'm not talking about equipment and gear, but what sets you apart with how you connect with your subject, but also with the entire team?
So, doing this for so long, I feel like I really haven't been in a situation that, or like, there's nothing that's going to surprise me on set anymore. I've seen it all. I've seen lights explode on set. You know what I mean? Seen kids get injured, and then we're like the PAs, people, like the production assistants are running to grab, stuff. Like, there's just every scenario you could ever imagine. So nothing surprises me. So I bring that, but beyond that, it's just who I am at my core. A lot of people say they feel like they instantly know me, that, we've connected from, a past life or something, or people end up getting really connected to me just because of my energy. And that's like the most common thing I hear. And I always hear that they felt the most comfortable on set, but then they also had their favorite photo of them taken. So I think the process is just as good as the product when working with me.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. So I'm going to ask you a little bit later on how you prepare for those shoots mentally to be able to create that space for people. But I would love to know, what is a tip that you would give a photographer?
I would say, we're going to dive more into this, but just know who you are and know what you will and won't do. That was always the biggest thing for me, because photography, I'm actually doing a book this upcoming year with all women of like who have been survivors of sex trafficking. And so photography can have a lot of negative connotation, and it can also have very positive connotation. So I think the first thing is to know what you're willing to do, what not to do. Male photographers out there, you tend to like photographing girls in their underwear. Like, that should not be the purpose of this. Like, I'm just saying it how it is, I'm just real talk.
Yeah,
right
come
now.
on now.
Yeah, real talk though. And it should be a purpose of sharing and not taking, because you are taking a photo, right? But I think that would be the first thing. If you're starting out, know your intentions, your morals, what you will and will not do, and your goals. So
100%. We connected this summer, and we're just on the phone it was supposed to be 15 minutes, but we were on the phone for like an hour. And I remember I had to like refill my parking meter when I was on the phone with you, because we connected over the concept of like bring God into your work. And so how do you include God and morals, ethics into your work?
So I would say for the first half of my career, I was very just persistent in my goals and my dreams, and morals kind of trickled in there. Like, there'd be instances where I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel right, I got to act accordingly. But it's always been present.
Yeah.
But I think now I'm very intentional. It's the reason I live in Phoenix and not Los Angeles. Just how that kind of fit into my work. Like, even the other day, I had a girl over here. The mom wanted the daughter to play Doja Cat, and I looked at my husband. I'm like, we don't allow Doja Cat to be played in our house. Like, we think she's associated with the devil. Like, we just don't participate in that stuff. So it was a really hard thing. Like, and that was one situation where I was like, okay, I kind of, lost it. And then I really regret it. Always having a present conscious mind of how it's always fit into my life. There's been instances where like I was offered to photograph the cover of Kanye West, and I said no, because it was going to be like the last Thanksgiving in my house. And now look at like how evil Kanye West has become, So
it just happened to be, okay. It just happened to be that way, where a couple days later, shortly after that all of that information came out about him?
Oh yeah, it was honestly one of those things where I was
Wow.
like, I'm so glad because A, I stuck to my morals of like I wasn't just gonna bail out on my mom. So that's thing
Yeah.
number one, right? And then two was look at how he turned out to be. And that's kind of actually like what started turning me off from the fashion world. And now I know you do branding portraits too, but now I'm more focused on like taking photos of like kind, wonderful female entrepreneurs mostly.
Yeah.
And instead of chasing this like fashion dreams for people that maybe aren't the best humans.
When it comes to in LA, and because you were photographing celebrity, and I mean like A-list, we're not just talking about little SpongeBob SquarePants on the Broadway show right now, Ariana Grande's boyfriend or whatever. When you were in LA, when did you, I just want to dive more into this whole thing of you moved from all of this quote opportunity to Arizona so you could escape some of the darkness and the demonic things that were happening in LA. Can we just talk about that, Pastor Katie?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was 28, it was probably one of like the darkest times of my life personally. It was right when I first moved to LA. My parents were going through something like it was just a lot emotionally. People always say like around 27 to 29, you kind of go through this transformation in your life where you're kind
Isn't
of
it like the Saturn return or something like that?
exactly. So if that's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm trying to step away from astrology stuff now just because of my faith. But yeah, the Saturn return is where that idea comes from is that you're really, maybe you push some of your childhood stuff away and then it kind of comes
Yeah.
up as you're becoming an adult. So that's what it was
Mm.
very heavy. It was something I could not deal with on my own.
Is
And
it
our,
when didn't you say you became a Christian at 28 or
Exactly. So
23?
that's where
Okay.
like all this is kind of yeah. So it's like right when I moved to LA for my internship with Vogue. Then I moved to New
Mhm.
York, and then when I moved back because I worked with Kourtney Kardashian, that was at 28. So all this kind of started happening. I was actually going through like yeah, probably one of the worst times of my life. Right as
Wow.
I was starting this crazy job with Kourtney.
Yeah.
So yeah, so then I started going to church, and like I said, I'd never really gone to church, but there during worship, they have you ever heard the song "There's Another in the Fire"?
Yes.
Yeah, so it has the lyrics. It's like there's another in the fire standing next to me. There's another in the sea, like, or another in the water holding back the sea. And I felt the Holy Spirit like come so deep from like my head to my gut,
Yeah.
basically, and I just wept. And it was
Wow.
yeah, so emotional, so pivotal, whatever. And then maybe a year after I went to church for a full year after that. Like I mean, every
Mhm.
Wednesday and every Sunday for a full year, starting that, and it really healed me. And then what
Yeah.
happened was the world shut down.
Was that the first time you experienced the Holy Spirit in that realm?
So my relationship with God was like I always felt like I had faith, and I always knew that through all my trauma and through all this that something was holding me, and who knew it was actually the ultimate father, right? But I grew up, my dad was Jewish, my mom was Catholic, and my dad kind of really pushed away a lot of his Judaism to start. Now he's like a big man of faith and probably even more associated with Christian faith, but he just really like it was kind of shoved down his throat. He went to an all Jewish school, whatever. And my mom was Catholic, and I ended up going to a Catholic school, but it was kind of too intense for me. Like it just felt like very abrasive, very like everything I was going to do was going to be a sin, and I just like couldn't deal with it. And yeah, I got called a dirty Jew, like all these really horrible experiences. And so yeah, it really pushed me back. And then that's when I started drinking really heavily when I was in my 20s and all this stuff like this. So I really never had a relationship with God until this point of 28. And the only reason I really even started going to church was because I had stopped drinking. And, instead of going to cocktail hour with a photographer, I was like, can I actually go to church with you? And they were like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like I'm supposed to go. Like, I just feel like I want to just experience it. So I went and changed my life. And then I found 2 churches in LA that I really liked. I really spent a whole year intensively devoted to God. Like, I would not, like, if it was a Wednesday or a Sunday, I don't care what opportunity happened. Like, I got invited to have dinner with Selma Blair. And they were like, yeah, Selma Blair is my, I'm the goddaughter to her son, or the godmother to their son. Come have dinner with Selma Blair. And I was like, nope, not before Jesus. So, I
Wow.
really like held to it. And yeah, and then the world shut down. And once the world shut down, a lot of the allure of Los Angeles went with it. And that's where I kind of deep dived into like, I went down a deep YouTube rabbit hole about all the demonic shit associated with, with Hollywood and specifically with celebrities. And I was like, I think there was always something that held me back from really popping off because I was definitely at the cusp of like becoming like that number one photographer. Like I was
Yeah.
on the cusp of being very alone for the rest of my life and selling my soul to the fashion industry. That's how I put it.
Wow. You don't have to really even say the names because I won't really know who they are. But if you can explain kind of, okay, this was an A-list person versus the list little SpongeBob SquarePants cheater, pumpkin eater on his family, Ariana Grande's boyfriend, like that kind of realm.
I'll never bash, like, there are certain like people I photographed that have been like accused of things later after I photographed them and a lot of stuff like that. But the main thing is I did notice, like with Kourtney Kardashian, like I got to notice her, like I spent time with her and her kids. I saw the
Yeah.
human side of her. I got to know her security guards, her maids. Like there's a very human, wonderful like side of Kourtney that I will never talk shit about to anybody in my life. But there is also a part of celebrities. Like I've gotten to know like Tan France, salt of the earth, angel human. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? Like,
Oh, that's good to hear because I do know him and I love him and everyone on Queer Eye.
yeah, you know what I mean? And you can tell from their show, like what they're doing is great, right? But,
Yes. Yes.
but then for example, like Ezra Miller, who, was The Flash and everything like that, 6 months later, he's accused of like grooming kids, right? So that's a lot of the things where like America's Next Top Model was seriously my absolute dream to be on when I was like a kid. Like that was my only world, like my only glimpse into the fashion world. And then when I was on it, it
Yeah.
was like total dream come true. But then,
Oh, you were a photographer on the show?
yeah, I was like the guest photographer for
Oh,
that crossover episode with like RuPaul's Drag Queens and
that's so iconic because that show is like the meme generator now. Like we were all rooting for you.
exactly. Well, I became became really good friends with a lot of people that were on the show. But the thing is, like, they'd be like accused of like withholding medicine from contestants or like sleep with, like just stuff like that that's not human. So I will say, like, that's the most stuff I heard. The only really thing that ever really irked me too was I photographed an actress that was under 18. And I remember the magazine got super heated with me because I sent the images to the girl and the mother before because I'm on set. I'm reliable. I really connected with their mom. To this day, they're still good friends of mine. Like I'm friends with her mother. And I was not prepared to send images of an underage girl to a website, or in a magazine without having the parents approve the images. So that was
Yeah.
like the biggest thing for me. And that magazine never worked with me again, and because they were
Wow.
so mad that I did that. So
That's crazy. That's crazy. And that just says so much about them. Like, how sketchy are you? But that's so admirable of you. And that's crazy that a magazine would have a problem with that.
I'm really killing myself to take pictures in magazines that people throw them away. Like they look at a magazine, they flip through it, and then it gets thrown away, right? That's my art that gets most of the time thrown away. So that idea really started to connect with me and being like, I'd
Right.
actually rather photograph a wedding now than photograph that because at least the memories mean something. It's not saying that I don't do it. Like I'm actually shooting the cover of Playgirl next week, which again, that is something that's a little saucy,
Wow.
it's a little sexy, but I'm still
Yeah.
doing it in my own way. Like I'm
Okay,
not
how are you? Yeah,
comfortable.
how are you gonna do that? 'Cause okay, Playgirl, is that like Playboy? It's just the
It's
new
like
version of it.
Playboy, but for girls, like, so it's of men. So yeah, and like, so especially somebody that's, me and my husband are really into right now. We're trying to like, we're very mindful about what we put into our minds and in our ears and,
Yeah.
all that stuff. And so, photographing something that's going to be a little sexy, a little fun, but that's where like, exactly what I'm talking about is going to play into that. Like, I'm not going to just photograph some dude's, junk because I'm being told to. They hired me for a reason and they know that
Yeah.
I'm going to do things sexy, playful, but not above where I would be comfortable. It's also just doing it creatively. Like, like I said, they hired me for a reason because, yeah, I would never say if you looked at my Instagram that it looks scandalous, right?
Right.
I would never say that, it's too, but there is some sexy imageries, but nothing is ever
Yeah.
totally fine. So I feel like I don't even need a contract. That's just like written in my style that like,
Mhm.
and it was so funny. The creative director calls me, he goes, maybe just a little push, maybe a little tush. And that's all we're going to make you do. And I was like, all right, that's fine.
Okay.
So I think that, like I said, we're just
One
towing the lines of like where your comfort levels is as your
Yeah.
photographer, right? And like, and also one of the people that I'm shooting for the covers is a very good friend of mine. So I
Okay.
felt better being there for his sake too, because like I was texting him and I'm like, if anything feels uncomfortable, let me know.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. That makes sense. And so when you got like the email for something like play girl where it's scandalous? Were you excited, or were you kind of like, I'm nervous that they're gonna just, that they just reached out to me, but they don't really know exactly how my work is. So then they're gonna not want to work with me once they see that I'm gonna do it my own way. Like, do you ever have that kind of almost imposter syndrome? I can't imagine you do, because you've literally photographed like everything. But does that ever hit you where you're like nervous they're gonna turn you down?
No, I wouldn't. I'm never nervous
Come
about
on now.
losing a job. Never. If I like,
Really?
that's because of my faith in God. So if it's meant for me, God will know and He'll guide me
Mhm.
there. And I'd like to think I'm pretty confident. I'm very like sure of myself. So nobody's ever gonna make me do a thing that I'm not comfortable with. Like
Wow.
never. I'd rather walk off set than do something like that, and I would have no problem doing that.
Have you ever had to walk off of a set?
Now that I think about it, no. I have had to say things like I'm really big on language. Like I don't like people
Mm.
being rude to people. So there is an instance where I've spoken up for people that were being talked down to. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, just stuff like that. I think it's you always have to stand up for everybody on set involved. Like actually with the Tan France shoot, this is what you'll love is the like I basically I was like, hey Tan, come over here. Here's the makeup artist. Here's the stylist. Here's the hair grooming story. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. Now,
Mhm.
like, can everybody just like, you're so talented. I don't need to tell you what to do. Why can't I just like see your artistry and vision and let it blossom?
And you, as a photographer, you're the one who gets to orchestrate the environment, and you're able to orchestrate kind of, I don't, for lack of a better word, like the energy, because it's you who's directly working with a subject. And so even if you're not the creative director or the producer or whatever, person, the editor of the magazine there, even if they are the ones who technically would be responsible for orchestrating all of that, you really, though, as a photographer, are the actual one who is putting it into action, because you're the person who's photographing the subject. And so when it comes to the whole sticking up for people situations, do you just like pull somebody aside? Let's say somebody is being a bully or saying something that makes the subject or anyone else on set feel uncomfortable, or do you just like call it out? How do you handle those types of scenarios?
I think checking in with everybody and just gauging comfort levels. I'm the first person to, I mean, it goes for any relationship you have, right? And even on
Mhm.
set or even just, yeah, if you're photographing people, you just have to communicate. Like, I'm really big at, if I'm touching somebody on set, I ask, like, especially with hair, I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, do you mind if I'm touching your hair? Or, like I said, oh, hey, that kind of seemed like you made a face. Is there something behind that face? Are you feeling disrespected? If so, I'll go and communicate that with the creative director, you know?
Mm.
I just think there's ways to like not being like, hey, you like meh, 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 meh. Like
Yeah.
I actually have a church story if you want to hear it. It's that kind of
Yes.
taught me this lesson. Yeah, it's so okay, I was at church and I was on all these steroids because I had a like a cough or like whatever, and I was prescribed these steroids for my lungs. And I don't know if you've ever taken steroids, but I react super intensely to them. You've never had it?
No, how do you react? Do you just become like really like hyper?
Exactly. Very hyper, very like whatever, right? So I went to church.
Okay.
I went to church solo that day. I was like, no one's going to stop me. I don't need anyone to go, and I'm going to go by myself. Like,
Flying down the street at like 80 miles an hour on
exactly.
the
I was like,
steroid.
yeah. And so this family of, it looked like a mom and three kids. They sat in front of me, and one of the kids might have had like, just like a slight learning disability or a little autism or something like that, right? And during the service, the man in front of their row, so like I'm behind, they're in front of me, and then the one in front of them keeps turning back and going, and I'm sitting here like all amped up, and I'm like, I got Jesus in me, and I'm about to tell this man that he's in church, and how dare he act this way, and whatever. And then I'm like, girl, you're gonna look crazy. You're on medicine. Like, why don't instead, like, so then what happened is, instead, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna yell at a random person I've never met in my life. I'm gonna instead invite that little girl to worship with me. So I said, hey, do you want to like giving the mom a break? I was like, hey, come worship with me. We danced. We had a really lovely time. And then as they're leaving, the mom's like, thank you. And then what happened is that man that was yelling at the kid gets up and walks out with them, and it's actually their father.
Oh,
And
close one.
if that's not God talking to you and through you, I don't know what is, because it truly was one of those moments where I'm like, you're not really supposed to, this is God telling me you're not supposed to tell people how to live. you're supposed to be a good example. If you translate that into your photography in any business, like I don't think you have to be a photographer to do that, but you really just need to, lead by a good example, and that sets the good energy or vibes or whatever you will for your set.
Yes. Do you find that especially when you were living in Los Angeles, that having your community at your church helped you in navigating like Hollywood situations and with your job?
I mean, having churches, like going to church is what made me leave Los Angeles or like decide that it was time. So
Dang.
pinnacle. But I mean, I'm going to LA this
Yeah.
weekend. I'm doing pre-Grammy photos. Like I'm going to LA in 2 weeks. So you know what I mean? Like it's not like I don't go to LA, but I'm not like encompassed by it anymore and all the like
Yeah, in it.
craziness. Yeah, and all the craziness that comes with it because I felt like LA was like dangling to me all the time. Like if you had actually known how many people I'd gotten asked to shoot that I just couldn't because of forever reason, that's what really kept me there. And once I freed myself from being so desperate, that's when actually like I felt freedom in my personal life. And, I ended up making that decision to leave LA is why I'm married now. So,
Really? Because you
yeah.
met in Arizona?
So what happened is I actually, during the pandemic, went back to my hometown and had an ankle surgery and connected with a guy I've known since I was 13. And he had family in Arizona. I had family in Arizona. And we decided to buy a house like 3 months into dating.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. That's amazing. And you just got married too recently.
Yeah, so like I mean, and that's when we were even talking about like how God has such an impact into every step of your life. Like all the, if I didn't have the trauma, then I wouldn't have found church. And if I didn't find church, I wouldn't have found a man of God. And you know what I'm saying? And I wouldn't have left a devilish city. You know what I'm saying? So I think if you really truly like your timing and God's timing are not the
Mhm.
same, but if you have faith that like your gut and your intuition and the Holy Spirit will guide you, like I think anything is possible and like you'll be satisfied with your life.
Yes. What advice would you give to people who are religious, period? It doesn't matter which one, which one, but it doesn't matter which religion they are, but they have faith. So, typically you have these guidelines that we're all trying to follow within our religion, but you want to work in fashion photography, for example, where there is so much darkness that happens behind the scenes. So what advice would you give to them? Would you say, don't even do it at all? Like, it's too scary. Don't be in the world. Like, da 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 da. We're better than that. What advice would you give for people?
I would say there's a season and a reason. Like, don't think that you can't be a fashion photographer if you don't do it for 40 years. You know what I mean? You can go to New York, live your dreams, and then GTFO. And
Yeah.
I also think that you can you can pray before set. That's a really big thing. And I don't think God wants you or expects you to never sin or to be involved with like that. But I think the people who function best, like, the Tony Robbins of the world, the this, the that, they're people that are grounded in their faith and extreme discipline. So like for me, like Florence and the Machine is one of my favorite artists, right? But I was at her concert like maybe last October, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, she's telling people to sacrifice themselves.
The
It's
way I know about I don't know anything about many like artists and stuff, but the way I know exactly the concert you're talking about.
It was demonic, and she's my
Yeah.
favorite, dude. I was like so bummed about it, but I was like, to actually go into my marriage, I need to like not. So I like cold turkeyed Florence and the Machine,
Really?
and yeah, it's been really
Yeah.
hard. I'm not saying once or twice, a song came, but I really avoid her last album. Everything up until this, but like her last album has a song called Demon Daddy, or like it's like I'll be your demon daddy, and I'm like,
Um,
no.
exorcism? We need exorcism.
I'm telling you, her last
No.
concert felt like the Hocus Pocus when they were like, dance until you die. And I really was like, holy smoke. So I think yeah, you have to be disciplined. At the most, I
Yeah.
mean, the way to be most successful in your life is have disciplined. So like if you have discipline with your faith, like I said, I don't think you're expected not to sin or not be like around stuff. I really do see like when the devil tries to come in, or like it wasn't my friend Aporva, she really started to show me like if you have dreams, like right before my wedding, I was starting to have like dreams about like kissing somebody else or whatever. And she's like,
Really?
that's the devil trying to like make sure you don't get married. And like even this, like the devil's trying to be like, don't record this podcast. It's gonna change someone's mind.
So then when it comes to being in Los Angeles, how did you then be like, okay, this is the last straw?
I mean, Arizona is still a huge city, but it's
Yeah.
not a city in the way that like, you're like being, it's like, I mean, LA and New York is so, enticing and sexy and fun.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of, I realized at one point maybe I'm doing it for me, or maybe I'm trying to prove these kids from high school that said I couldn't do
Yeah.
it wrong. So
Yeah.
what's my reasoning for being here? Is it really because I liked it? And it was more just I realized how alone I really was in those cities.
Mm,
And for me, like life's purpose is like, even so, still now, I came home from a birthday party this past weekend and I'm like, this was supposed to be my day off. And all the moms are like, I want to schedule a shoot with you and this. And I'm like, and I appreciate that. But like, there's so much more to me than this. And if I was in those places, I feel like that's all I would have been was a photographer. But now I'm like a really, really good wife. I have a really, really amazing husband. I've got a great dog. I have a beautiful home and I have clients that align with my values. And then I
yeah.
choose to allow LA in my life when it serves its purpose.
You're able to, since you're out of it, make more better choices. I feel like whenever I get tempted to want to move back to New York, I do have to ask myself, is it because that I genuinely want to live in the city and I already done it twice and I moved away? So, or is it because I'm like attracted to the consumerism almost of it, like having this amazing apartment in Manhattan and then being able to just be even in like the more influencer realm, going to events and, it's so much consumption. And growing up in the Northwest, we're really taught, especially Seattle, like about the environment and about consumerism. And so when I get really tempted or I watch like other influencers, and I still love, there's nothing wrong with influencers, but there's definitely some definitely like in New York, in LA, that are just, it's consumerism central and it's very out of touch with reality. There's no value they're putting in. It's just a lot of a soundboard to like talk about themselves, but very shallow things. And so I'm like, okay, if I move to New York, it would be really hard to like not fall into that where it's all about ego, you know what I mean? So I really love that advice where then I get to go back to New York and I'm there because I want to do shoots and stuff. I don't have to even have that other side of what I do in the influencer space. I get to be there for my clients, which is why I originally moved there, is to do photography full time. So I love that you're able to make more sound decisions when you're outside of that bubble.
100%. But even what you just said too, you said, I'm feeling tempted, right? And what tempts
Mm-hmm.
you? The devil, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And you're feeling consumed, and what can consume your soul? You know what I'm saying? So even just
Yeah.
look at the language that you're having associated with the city, right? So I think and don't get me wrong, New York
Yeah.
was the first love of my life. New York was
Yeah.
hands down the first love of my life, and then photography, and then my husband,
Mhm.
in that order, 100%. But
Yeah.
it's just like, and like you said, you can do it for 2 years and then get out of there. Like my friend, she's just about to, when she first moved to New York, she's like, I'm going to be Sex in the City and single and I'm going to, live my dream and I'm never living in New York. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But what's probably going to happen is you're going to get worn out. You're going to be there for 5 years and like, just don't feel ashamed and don't feel like you
Yes.
failed. Like
Yes.
rent
Yes.
that apartment in Soho for like a month or 6 months or whatever it is. Live your dream, live it up, save up to do it, and then leave in like an honorable way, you know?
Yes. Yes.
Because that's even how I felt with LA. I thought people were gonna like judge me for not living there anymore, but I just like exited very tastefully and gracefully and didn't make a whole fuss or muss about it. Really didn't even tell people for a year. I just, decided to do what's best for me.
Yes. I think this would go perfect into what would be your advice then for people who they want to move to one of the New York or LA or Paris or wherever, any city that's like a different city than where they grew up. How can they be then have this plan of action where they're like, okay, maybe they want to be there forever, you know, most likely they will not want to once they're there for a few years. How can they go into a place like New York, which is consumerism central, amazing opportunity, more opportunity than where they're living right now, but be really conscious about the choices that they're making and to not get caught up in the Birkins of it all, the Chanel of it all, the having to the cocaine of it all. Not that I
Yeah.
did cocaine there or anything, but like all of those substances and spending your money and feeling like you have to keep up with the Joneses, even when it comes to like the camera equipment itself.
If you go into New York with the mindset that you're going to be like a routine, I think routine is like something I don't have. I'm giving advice that of things I don't do, right? Okay. But routine is everything there. You have to set up a way to like not go insane in a place like that because you'll most likely be living in a shoebox, right? So you
Yeah.
have to like have some sense of like routine and normalness because like also when
Yes.
you get going, your days are going to be so hectic. So like have a foundation, a place of that, and then, don't be consumed. I think you can spend a lot of money there. And I will
Yeah.
say like so I lived in New York for 7 years, and 4 of it I was drinking and 3 of it I was not. And the money difference of when I was not
Yeah.
drinking. And, I actually had a situation where I had somebody roofie my drink my like first week in moving in New York. It was like the scariest thing in the world. I woke up with like a huge black eye and like, it was terrifying. So, for me, like I said, it's not everybody's choice, but sobriety, we still smoke or whatever. I still do things. It's not like
Yeah.
I'm not insane, right? Yeah. If you have a sober mindset, if you have a routine, if you only try to work with people you want, because the cool thing about Instagram now is you can really have access to like everybody now. So
Yeah.
if you want to work for a magazine that is shooting people in a really disgraceful way, then go ahead and do that if that's your cup of tea. But you also can find a way to, align your morals with something like right now, like that Harper's Bazaar cover I shot was
Yeah.
actually with my mentor, who was one of the most like women of God I've ever met in my life.
Wow.
And so it's not like I didn't shoot a Harper's Bazaar cover, but
Yeah.
I'm not photographing somebody accused of raping someone now. So
Yeah. So what about though if you're like, oh, this opportunity, you're there, you've been there for a while and you feel like I haven't gotten anything yet, and then an opportunity comes where you feel like it's almost compromising your morals?
So I think like it really does just come down to faith and how much do you really
Mm.
trust God? Because you either do or you don't. It's as simple as that.
Come on now.
It's
Okay.
true.
Come
It's
on,
your
Pastor.
faith cannot be conditional. Faith is not conditional, and it cannot be something that you flip flop on. You either have faith in God or you don't. So, like, there's like just for example, right? So there was this one time I was supposed to go to a party for New Year's Eve, right? And my brother is like he's living with Chance the roommate, the rapper's like whole band. It's like 100% sure that Chance is gonna be at the party tonight. Skrillex is gonna be at the party tonight, and I get a phone call from my mom, and she's like, "Can you please spend New Year's with me?" And I'm like, like, yes, mommy, I will go and spend New Year's with you. And I missed out on that super cool opportunity, right? But 2 years later, I actually had the opportunity because I had been going to church, and I told Chance's musical director that because they're all big faith guys. I
Yeah.
said, hey, I started going to church. Actually, one of Chance's lines helped me feel comfortable in church. It says, "I love to say your name. It comes from my diaphragm." And
Yeah.
I was like, I said that. I'm like, it really inspired me to open up my like diaphragm to God, right? To
Yeah.
pray. And that's how I got to do like a little interview with Chance all about God. But it was like 2 years after this happened, maybe even 5 years. Like it was so much
Yeah.
later, but God still put the opportunities in front of me, but maybe not as soon as I wanted to. So, or even the Tan
Yeah.
France book, I did that shoot for free. And then 2 years later, he goes, "Oh, can I make that my UK book cover?" And I was like, "Okay." And then I got racks, for doing that. So,
Wow.
I just think, like I said, your timing and God timing is different, and faith cannot be conditional. Like faith cannot be a condition of, okay, your parent could die and you could be angry with God, but you shouldn't be. You know what I'm saying? Like you have to really like own your faith through temptation, through struggles, through all these things, because that's actually
Yeah.
what like, having a solid foundation of God is like.
Come on now. Where have you seen the spirit of generosity come into fruition in your life with opportunities where
That
you
is
step out of the ego?
the question of the century. Generosity, my husband gets mad at me because of like how much I always donate to everybody or how giving I am. It's like, it's actually like, I have to like physically like contain myself. But the thing is, so it's like, okay, there's probably a point where I was being too taken advantage of at one point in my life. Like I was like, hey, like I'm happy to be in the in at least the bubble that you're in, let's go. I'll do anything for free. Like I definitely have done so many shoots for free. It's all come back to me. Like I really believe it. Maybe not all the time, and maybe I needed to be a little bit more intentional. But I think really going with your gut on who you're giving to, like, and do it
Yeah.
with like a purpose. Like so, you know, like, so I'm doing a shoot with Kelly Baker Brow. She's like the brow Kardashian girl or whatever. But
Okay.
I'm gifting her a branding session because she gifted me something. I like reached out to her and she like sent my mom this like whole brow kit. And it was just like, so she was generous. So I was like, hey, like, you know, you are doing something that I admire. Like, let's just go and let's collaborate and like, let me give to you because you gave to
Yeah.
me. Even if the monetary value doesn't always translate or whatever. But so I think that's always a good mindset. But I also think, you know, you can get into an area where, you know, just trade. If you're really feeling like, you know, you want to bless people, then maybe figure out how to do a trade, figure out, you know, when it works and when it doesn't work. Cause I've been screwed over in my life many times by being too naive.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
there's a difference between being generous and being naive.
Yes.
Yeah, just figuring out that kind of dynamic within yourself. My husband's really like helped me a lot with that. So I think finding your
Mm.
person to be that sounding board is really helpful. I like let a girl sublease my apartment during the pandemic and like gave it to her for $700 in like a $2,000 place. Came back, my whole apartment was destroyed. Like completely
Oh
destroyed. Like,
no.
and that was really heartbreaking for me and it was really felt violating. So I think just know when you start to like
Yeah.
your gut. Your gut is connected to God, right? So if you listen to what
Yeah.
feels right and when to be generous, but the sense of entitlement, like I can guarantee you, there's some 22-year-old who has no idea what the hell they're doing, charges more than me. I can guarantee you that. And do like I think with photography too, like yes, know your worth, but at the same time, like we are using our skills to take pictures on a camera and then go home and edit them. Like that is the, you know, creme de la creme. That's our process, right? So I think
Yeah.
there is a limit to what you really should charge because I really value, like, I know the people that are paying me, like, right? I get a check, they pay me, they worked hard for their money as well. So I think there's a nice balance of like knowing your worth, knowing when to be generous, and being realistic too.
What about in the sense of being generous with your knowledge? I mean, you've always been so generous with your time with me, and you've always been like, if you have any questions, you can always ask me. Come to Arizona. You and Kiana are like, you need to come to Arizona and
Please,
like do something. Like,
the
okay, I'll do
bedroom
that.
here
That'd
for
be so
you.
fun. So, where have you seen that in your life where we don't have to be like gatekeepers?
As a
Where have
self-esteem
you?
thing, yeah, that's like even hearing what you said, it's a total self-esteem thing with people. Like, I mean, not
Mhm.
wanting to share and not wanting to give is like that's not how God wants you to be, right? Like God wants you to share and give, and you know your gift is a thing, right? But I think, like we were saying earlier, like I'm very confident in my abilities. Like, well, before you were doing the podcast, you're like, if you want me to cut anything after, I was like, nope, I'm not going to say anything that because I know myself. Like I can control my tongue. I'm not going to say
Yeah.
anything that I don't want somebody to know, right? And that's just knowing yourself and knowing, you know, who you are. Then having boundaries, like my FaceTime shoots, I will not chat about on a podcast. I'm not telling you how I do them. I'm not going into it. It's my bread and butter right now. And I'm not in the mood to like, if I want to hire out photographers to have that as my business one day, super. I'll tell you how to do
What's
it.
it called? The FaceTime shoots?
Yeah, I have a whole business where I do virtual photography on the side.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and but it's like it's something that if you can figure it out if you want to on the internet, but it doesn't need to come from me because it's truly
Yeah.
something that. But at the same time, I know what I bring to the table, so
Yeah.
I think it's like your confidence too. Like if you're so scared that someone's going to copy your business, like you're probably in the wrong business.
Where have you seen in your life that by investing in community, whether it's in photography or just in general, has come back to you in your life, but maybe also in your business?
So I'm part of a mentorship called it was called It Factor. Now it's called the Fortitude Membership. It's all like faith-based community people that are all business owners.
Mhm.
So that's like really just helped me grow and like figuring out who I am as a brand and like what I can bring to the table and like positivity community. But I did also just want to talk about like, you know, we were saying how like how do you like navigate giving, but I will say like a more important thing for anybody to listening is how to navigate taking. So
Okay.
yeah. like, that's the thing is there's so many people like that have reached out to me for mentorships or like, I'll take a phone call with just about anybody. If you're listening, please reach out to me. I will happily share any and answer any questions or look at your portfolio or whatever. But I also do offer it where I charge people for this, right? So you can have a mentorship thing, right? But depending on how it's worded to me, that will influence my decision.
Yes.
So somebody, like, I've had so many people reach out to me and be like, show me how to do this. I'm like, show you how to do what? Like, who the hell do you think you are? Like, I don't owe you anything, and you should be lucky to have my time. And then that's like, but like, look how defensive I even just sounded with that. So it's all your approach. Like, but if somebody was like, I admire your work, I'm really struggling, I loved your shoot of Tan France, it super inspired me, like, could I just have 10 minutes of your time? I'd love to take you to coffee. Like, do you know how many times I've bought somebody lunch that I respect? Like, if somebody approached me and offered to buy me lunch, I'd be like, yeah, I have my time. That sounds great.
Yeah.
You know, so I just think if you're like expecting people to owe you something, you're going to go down you're not going to, like, you're already set yourself up for failure.
That's such good advice. My best friend Jenny always says to me, nobody owes you anything. And if you can have that mindset, basically the idea is then you're giving from a place of generosity and from like a pure place. And then when something does come back to you, you value it even more. And then it also helps you manage expectations as well. But I know what you mean, where for me, I do charge for if somebody wants me to review their website or portfolio, because I already have 6 years of free photography content online that they could probably go and learn the same thing that they'd be asking, you know? So I have to have those boundaries where, well, I do need to charge because I've already given you access to so much. So if you want to get specific, then we have to make that a separate thing. But then that's where it's like with Build and Bloom, with the meetup group, and you know, maybe someday we'll do workshops again, and those workshops were free. That's how I'm able to give. But yeah, it's all about the attitude. About, I love what you said about how you are taking from people and then asking yourself, how can I give in my community? Especially like a good example, if you're like, okay, I get people ask me to do shoots for free all the time. Well, maybe you can pick and choose. And maybe it's like, well, those aren't the people you should be giving shoots to. Seek out people in your community where, for example, when I was in high school, there was a girl who she was pregnant. And so I did her maternity photos for free. Finding people where there's a need for it, where they're not even asking because they wouldn't even know, or even be like, maybe that was kind of rude to, expect whatever. But there's ways you can give, and it might not even be from the people who are asking you for it.
I probably give away a shoot like once a month just to somebody that I like. It just, God tells me I'm supposed to do it, right? Or like a small business that I know, like, because part of what we do, right, is having the imagery of their brand match the identity of their brand and help them make them more money, right? So, it was Pride Month. I found this bakery. It's called Dos Chris. It's him and his husband. And I was like, you know what? Like, I really love what they're doing in their business. I want to gift them a shoot. And I just felt like inspired by God to do so. Right. Yeah. So, I just think, or like single moms are a big one for me. Like single moms, I really do have a very soft spot for, like, especially moms that are working like 2 jobs. I would do like you and me should do like a whole like day of that where we just
That'd be so fun.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and then even like this book that I'm doing, like, I don't want to take money for photographing victims of sexual assault. Like, that seems really disgusting to me, to be honest, So that's the thing, is we're all given like an ability in art, and like it's truly a treasure to see people the way we do. So I think you just have to know when to be generous and know when you're being taken advantage of, and that'll guide you.
100%. This podcast episode is brought to you by my Business Basics class. I teach you the 8 essential steps to get your business legal and legit so you can watch it bloom. You'll learn the basics of what is an LLC and the first steps to opening one up, opening a business bank account, how to find an accountant, what is bookkeeping and how can you do it yourself to save some money, what contracts and legal documents to consider and where you can buy them, the starting point for saving for your retirement, how to find a financial advisor, and where to start looking for business insurance. When you avoid getting all these ducks in a row, you are risking getting sued, paying more in taxes, and missing out on turning your income into more money. Head to jessicawhitaker.co/businessbasics to enroll. For photographers who want to incorporate their faith into their work, what are some subtle ways that they can do that through word choice when directing a shoot or curating their portfolio? What are practical steps that photographers could take if they are unsure about the ethics and values of a potential client? Walk me through your decision process when vetting clients.
I mean, obviously through this podcast, I have not implemented this, but I do think changing the idea from photo shoot to photo session is a really big one. I think it changes the mindset of it because I just really don't like I say, oh, I shot them last week. And I'm like, whoa, that feels weird. I don't like saying that. So that's a big one. And then just when, like I said, I didn't do it. This woman wanted to play Doja Cat in my house and I allowed it. And guess what happened is I'm really regretting having that energy in my house. Doja Cat's this artist that started off really kind of special and unique and kind of seems to have sold her soul to the devil. She has that, she's the devil, song. And then that Paint the Town Red song. And it was all over Instagram. Everybody's making reels of it. And I'm like, you guys don't even know that you're pushing this devilish stuff. Know what you're capable of and what you can, hold, and just try to remember that praying before shoots is a really good thing as well. Saying, hey, Lord, help me, make this person feel comfortable, make this person feel safe, help me do my best job and put my best foot forward and know that you're with me for everything. Amen. That's a very simple prayer.
What are practical steps that a photographer could take if they're unsure about the ethics and values of a potential client? So when you get an email, let's say, for example, with the Playgirl magazine, when you got that inquiry, what was your decision process when you were vetting that client?
So it's not like I got a random email, first of all, for that client. It's somebody that I've known for years. Yeah, the creative director.
Okay, so it's not a cold email or anything.
No, so
does that make it easier?
Yeah, and I'm a big relationship person. If you know anything about me, I'm all word of mouth. So a lot of my business is relationship based. So I get a lot of leads, but it's usually referral based. So I'm not doing I don't advertise on Instagram. I don't advertise on Facebook. Everything in my life is word of mouth because God.
And that's a testament to God's favor on you.
That's exactly
and how the relationships that you've built that. And I know some people are going to be like, what? It also is because of your work. And yes, but because you've stuck to your values and because of the relationships that you've built and the way you've curated people and how they feel, that is a testament to that you've been faithful to your relationship with God, your morals, and that there are things that you turn down. The fact that most of your work is referrals is incredible. Tell me your process with the referrals, but then also I'm curious your process now would be with, I guess, cold emails.
Cold emails. I research companies. I was going to email about a company, but they're an environmental group. So I knew hey, that kind of aligns with my values. I'm really into anybody that's doing good things for the environment, right? So that's one. I did one for doctors. I always really appreciate doctors, all the stuff like that. I'm doing a big project with a bunch of plastic surgeons that sounds very superficial on the outside, right? I'm talking to guys about the boob jobs they do for people, right? But they're all John Hopkins, you know what I mean? They're John Hopkins graduates. They're, go and do these travel trips where they help kids with cleft palates. They're incredible people. So I think having an open mind, also you don't have to continue a project just because you started it. So if something starts to feel fishy, then get out. Don't just go through with something just because you're obligated. I think just navigating when it's okay to push your own boundaries and when it's not.
Okay, if you could give encouragement to people who they do see others, maybe their best friend is always getting bookings from referrals in their community. And they're just oh my gosh, I wish that could be me.
Looking outward and look inward. First of all, jealousy is a sin, right? You shouldn't be looking at somebody else and wishing what they had. So
come on, jealousy is a sin. Get better soon.
You know what I mean? That's
yes. I didn't even think of that would be considered jealousy. Yeah, sneaky.
Yeah, if you're looking around, you're not looking here. You know what I'm saying? If you're looking all around everything else, you're not focused. So you need to narrow in your thinking, and then from there, just if you're not getting jobs, maybe it's because it's not because maybe you're just spending too much time looking at everybody else and not focusing on your client relationships. And also I've had, people it's happened to me so many times, I thought we had a really good shoot and then they booked somebody else. Oh, my husband would be don't you get kind of upset about that? And I'd be no.
For example, an engagement shoot and they booked a different wedding photographer.
Exactly. that happened to me just recently, but you know what? It was meant for that photographer. It was there for the reason. They're not doing it because they think you're some crappy photographer that doesn't know what she's doing. Maybe they just like the vibes were better. They happen to get along with someone, and good for them. I really like congratulate the blessings that like on their marriage, onto the photos, everything.
Yeah.
Um, so I think you just have to know what's meant for you will be. And if you're not getting enough bookings, you need to maybe, do a lot of work on yourself. You maybe are focusing also then, or maybe you're focusing too much on yourself and not about the
Yeah.
client. So I
Yeah.
just think all those things are like a reflection. If you're not getting bookings, like that's more of a reflection of you, or it's God telling you to like slow down, put your systems into place, and then re-jump at things.
This ties into it. When you're not feeling inspired, I think the best way to get re-inspired is to go and volunteer your time, either like a single mom and doing their photos, or it could also look like going and volunteering in an organization. And you will get inspired when you are pouring out your cup, because it's not going to, right now it feels like half empty, rather than half full, and you go and volunteer and you donate and have a spirit of generosity, then your cup is going to be overflowing, and then you will get inspiration for your photography business, whether it's with visuals or with like, okay, now I feel inspired to get my act together and finish up my website. And then that's how you can start also, like that will then play out into the referrals.
Having a season of learning and growing is only gonna fulfill you and make you feel better. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes like taking those quiet 6 months, or, the year I was going to church, like I really was not working that much. Like I was hardly making any money, but it's because I was, like I said, filling my cup. So I
Wow.
just
Okay.
think like,
Yeah.
yeah. And that's the thing is like you could look at my career and think it's super fabulous or whatever, but you don't see all the downs because there has been like a lot of lows. But just working through it and navigating, and then once you like feel like you can really, build and blossom, like you know what I mean, bloom, right? That's really what you have to do. It's true.
Yeah.
You you have to
100%.
build to bloom.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that so much. So clever. And it's so true too. Oh my goodness. Honestly, this podcast is going to be so encouraging to everybody who listens. And I know that it is a word from the Lord, from Pastor Katie herself, about that's going to encourage really and impact people, and just being able to like rethink their like, okay, what are my priorities? Where's my ego at? Am I saving up money to move to LA only to get into like the consumption and be tempted? Or am I saving my money to move to LA to be able to grind and to work, but still to have a balance? It's going to really, really help people make decisions. I know that. Do you have any other things that you would like to encourage? Maybe the people who I'm talking about the people who are like, you know what, this podcast episode is a sign from God. I'm driving down the street back home from my, my second job of the day, and I just needed to hear this encouragement. What could you say to that person in particular?
I think if you're a photographer or like somebody that's struggling to be a photographer, know that like the thing about this career is the sky's the limit, truly. Like you can make as much money or as little money as you want. And just a general statement is you can do absolutely anything you want in this world. Like God encourages dreams, and God encourages humility though at the same time. So, know when God's trying to humble you and know when God's trying to push you. So I think having that balance in your life is really what's going to like propel you to be exactly where you're meant to be.
Oh my gosh. Come on now. The humility. God has the humility that, I love it. Come on now.
Well, because that's the thing is
gosh.
like, have you ever seen the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once?
No, I haven't seen that one.
But it basically just says it's so good, but it basically is just the idea of like every time that you make a decision in your life, it's kind of like a bracket system. So like as if you're playing, like fantasy basketball or whatever, and there's like two choices, right? So, for me, it was going to, I could have stayed at Iowa State with my crappy boyfriend and gotten married and had his kids, and he would have cheated on me the whole life. So that was one version of my life. The other one was to break up with him and go for photography, right? Or one is to stay in LA, and one was to move to Arizona with my husband. You know what I'm saying? Like there's two different things, and it doesn't say one is right or the other, but every choice brackets off into like a new version of what could have been, right? So just make sure that when you're bracketing off, you're aligning yourself with God. And if you're not aligning yourself with God, I hope that he leads you to the next one, which will bracket off into aligning with God. So
that's so good. Thank you so much for coming on and for doing such a long episode. I'm so pleased with this. And where can everybody find you online?
Instagram is probably the best one, just Katie Levine Photo. And if you want to check out my website, it's Katie Levine Photo as well. Basically, Katie Levine Photo across all platforms.
They're going to pull up your Instagram and be like, damn, she has work. You guys are going to see and be like, holy crap. Come on now. You're going to see first thing on there, Kourtney Kardashian. Like, oh my gosh, the girls are going to love it.
Yeah. Also, though, I'm going to photograph you one day, love. We're going to have to photograph each other. So that's the next
I would love to meet up with you in Arizona, you and Kiana. Kiana, you guys who are listening, you're like, wait, Kiana Marie? Yes, Kiana Marie. I've had her on my podcast like 4 times because I love her so much.
She is, if you're trying to learn, I will say, like, if you're trying to learn how to be a photographer, please listen to her podcast as well and like really seek her out. She is somebody I admire. She did my engagement photos. Like, she's just somebody I really like think is, a light in this world as well.
She's so awesome. Well, so are you. Thank you so much again for coming on the podcast.
Pleasure.
I'll have your information linked down in the description box below, or you can just pop onto Instagram. It's Katie Levine Photo.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you so much.